The siege of Kepler 442b had lasted 18 months. Commander Zethkara of the Valerian Defense Force pressed her four-fingered hand against the cracked viewport of the command bunker, watching another wave of hegemony dreadnoughts descend through the crimson-stained atmosphere. Her people's crystalline cities, once gleaming like jewels across the planet's surface, now lay in ruins beneath the relentless bombardment. "Sir?" Lieutenant Mordai's voice cracked through the static of their failing communications array. "The northern defensive grid has fallen. We have maybe 6 hours before they breach the core shield generators." Zethkara's bioluminescent patches dimmed with despair. The hegemony had been methodical in their conquest. System by system, world by world. The Valerians had been among the last to hold out, but their crystalline technology, impressive as it was, couldn't match the sheer industrial might of the galaxy's most ruthless empire. "What about the other Alliance members?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The Corinthian hive mind went silent 3 weeks ago. The Zephyrian fleet scattered to the void after their homeworld burned. Mordai's antennae drooped. "We're alone, Commander." But they weren't entirely alone. In the depths of space, a legend was returning. Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Indomitable studied the tactical display with grim determination. Around her, the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship hummed with barely contained energy. It had taken them 8 months to cross the galaxy after receiving the Valerian's final transmission, a desperate plea broadcast across the quantum relay network before the hegemony had cut it off. "Status report," Chen commanded. "All ships report ready, Captain," replied Commander Rodriguez, her executive officer. The fleet's at full strength, all 847 vessels accounted for. 847 ships. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled, pulling vessels from every colony, every defense force, every patrol squadron humanity could spare. When the call had gone out that their allies were dying, every human captain had answered without hesitation. "They won't expect us," Chen murmured, watching the hegemony's massive fleet through the tactical scanner. 3 years ago, when we were pushed back to the Sol system, they thought we were finished. They thought wrong. The humans had retreated, yes, but they hadn't surrendered. They had regrouped, rebuilt, and refined their technology with a fury that only a species facing extinction could muster. The new ships bristled with innovations born from desperation: quantum torpedo systems, gravitational pulse weapons, and adaptive shielding that learned from every hit it took. On Kepler 442b, Zethkara watched the sky burn as another city fell. Her people huddled in the underground shelters, their songs of lament echoing through the crystal caverns. The children no longer asked when the war would end. They had been born into conflict and knew nothing else. "Sir." Mordai's voice suddenly carried hope for the first time in months. "I'm detecting massive gravitational disturbances at the system's edge." Zethkara's patches flared bright blue, the Valerian expression of shock. "The hegemony bringing reinforcements?" "No, sir. The signatures are different." "They're—" Mordai's voice broke. "By the crystal singers, they're human." Space folded in on itself as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. The hegemony's commanders, secure in their orbital bombardment positions, barely had time to register the threat before the first wave of quantum torpedoes lit up the void like artificial stars. Captain Chen stood as her bridge shook from weapons fire. "All ships, this is Indomitable. Remember, we're not here for conquest. We're here for our friends. Show these bastards what happens when you threaten humanity's allies." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than the hegemony's lumbering dreadnoughts, swarmed through their formations like angry hornets. The Indomitable herself, bristling with experimental weapons, carved through the enemy fleet with surgical precision. On the planet's surface, Zethkara watched in amazement as human dropships began landing, disgorging Marines in powered armor. These weren't the same humans who had retreated 3 years ago. These warriors moved with deadly purpose. Their weapons and tactics evolved through years of guerrilla warfare. "Valerian Command, this is Colonel Martinez, 5th Human Expeditionary Force," crackled through their communications. "Sorry we're late." Traffic was hell crossing the galaxy. Despite everything, Zethkara found herself laughing, the first time in months. "Colonel Martinez, you have impeccable timing." The battle raged for 72 hours. The hegemony, caught completely off guard, fought desperately to maintain their advantage. But the humans had learned from their earlier defeats. Every tactical mistake had been analyzed, every weakness exploited. When the last hegemony ship finally retreated into hyperspace, the human fleet maintained pursuit for 3 full systems, making it clear that this wasn't just a rescue. It was a declaration that humanity had returned to the galactic stage, and they would protect their allies at any cost. Weeks later, as reconstruction began on Kepler 442b, Zethkara stood beside Captain Chen in the ruins of the capital city. Around them, human engineers worked alongside Valerian crystal singers to rebuild what had been lost. "We thought you had abandoned us," Zethkara admitted quietly. Chen shook her head, her eyes hard with determination. "Humans don't abandon family. We just sometimes need time to figure out how to win." She gestured to the mixed crews working together. "The hegemony made one critical mistake. They assumed we were beaten. But you can't break a species that refuses to stay down." As the twin suns of Kepler 442 set over the reconstruction efforts, Zethkara's bioluminescent patches glowed warm gold, the color of hope restored. The humans had returned, and with them, the promise that no ally would ever stand alone again in the darkness of space.